Swift? I can't remember.
For coming again. I wanted to remind you, you probably already thought about it, but if you look to your bottom lower left, you'll see a mute button if you want to mute yourself. Mark on your screen, that's like a magnifying, a microphone with a. And so that's a good way to mute and unmute yourself as needed, because I would love to have some contributions from you from time to time as we discuss our girl-friendly outreach. I wanted to check in with everybody. A few people posted about their interview with a woman about her early science experiences, and thank you so much for your posts. Penny, you did 5 interviews. I mean, that was really, it's amazing to see the variety that naturally occurs. Some people who were surprised, I know that they're people that they had known for a long time were also very interested in science, and some of them pursued it and some of them didn't. So it was a real nice group of people that we had interviewed. Did anyone want to share anything about their experiences that they either didn't get to post in the forum yet or are thinking or thought about after reading people's replies?
The thing that I found interesting is that because I sent the note out to a lot of women that I know of different age groups, but and even though they had parents or people within their family who were educated, who were engineers or scientists or mathematicians or involved in the STEM kinds of activities, that not all of them went that direction, that they realized that that was not the thing that was for them, even though they had been exposed to it. And then there are others that were greatly reinforced because of that STEM relationship. So I found that interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week, that 7 out of 10 girls are interested in science and STEM fields, but then not as many go on to continue in careers. And that's what's so great about having Girl Scouts coming to more amateur astronomy events, is because we'll give them opportunities to recharge that batteries and have different experiences that will help reward their excitement in STEM. So it's a really exciting opportunity for all of us, I feel. Anyway, it's great to be back with you lovely people. And this week we're going to talk more brass tacks about what to do at the telescope. But we spent a lot of time last week talking about micro messages that we can give and storytelling, and what stories can make a difference in terms of role modeling. But this week we're going to learn things we can do that are additional tools for our toolbox, so that we'll be able to bring what we need to the situation, whether it's a screwdriver or a different eyepiece that we want to share. So thank you again for coming. One of the first aspects that I want to talk about is this idea of our mindset. A mindset's just like small ideas and opinions and beliefs that sometimes we're not even aware of, but they affect the way we interact with each other. And so I'm going to talk about 2 mindsets, fixed and growth. And let's talk about the fixed first. In a fixed mindset, it's the idea that the things that you're good at, you're born good at, and there's not much changing that's going to happen. And that's sort of like, sometimes people will say, oh, you're a science person or a math person or an art person, or you're really talented. Those phrases kind of hint that we have one identity that is very set. This term fixed mindset was coined by Dr. Carol Dweck in the 80s. And so we've been discovering since then that it's kind of a more flexible identity that we have. So when you hear these phrases like, oh, you're so smart, can lock you into a behavior of trying to be smart all the time and proving your intelligence rather than being open to new explorations. And so a lot of us hear these phrases as we're growing up, and they're not necessarily bad. They're not necessarily things that aren't compliments. It's nice to be told that you're smart, but it's when you have to be locked into that all the time and show you're smart all the time and not take challenges that it can be sort of problematic. So what happens when we have these fixed mindsets and we encounter challenges? Well, if you're an expert all the time, how can you grow, right? That's a big part of doing science, is growing. Even when we go to conferences or meet each other or do professional development or go to webinars, right? It's because we feel like we have places that we want to grow and explore and learn about. And if you are stuck as an expert all the time, there's not much room to vary. And so the other side of the coin is this idea of a growth mindset. It's the idea that you can learn anything as long as you keep trying and doing different strategies. And so I want you to think of when you were a baby until you are now. So what can you do now that you couldn't do as an infant? And just think about it and put it in the chat. And I just also want to check if you remember how to put things in the chat. Kayaking, yes. Math, Alice says yes. These are quite advanced skills that an infant wouldn't have. Typing, Penny says, walking, talking. Oh no, Vivian said that, yes. As we're typing right now, we're doing things that we couldn't do as a small child. Mostly everything, Stacy says. Yeah, these are things that we've learned as we've gone on. And it turns out our intelligence, it seems to be that way also. So even if we were told we weren't a math person or a science person as a child, we still can develop these areas. And there's not any set person. What they did in the 80s when they were studying this is they had children take a test. And half of the kids were told, well, this task is really for only very smart people. And some people who saw themselves as very smart did well on it, but not as well as you might think. And a lot of the children who didn't think of themselves as very smart did poorly on it. But the other group was told, this is for people who work hard, and people who do well will do well on this test if they work hard. And across the board, everyone could see themselves as someone who worked hard. And they started studying this, as I mentioned, in the late 80s. And now there's a lot of research about this. Jennifer said she couldn't walk, talk, or roll over. Yes. So when you have a growth mindset, when you get challenged by something, you might need to take a minute, but then you can say, what can I learn from this? How can I explore this? Or you might say, kayaking, that sounds amazing. I want to try that. And so it really helps you grow in a lot of different ways being challenged. And you don't have to feel like being challenged is somebody who is making you feel uncomfortable or challenging your authority. It's really just about interactions and questioning and growing as opposed to being an expert. And there's nothing wrong with being an expert from time to time. We all have areas that we are really shine in, but also we have areas we'd like to learn. And even in those areas we're feeling strong about, we can also grow and learn. So went the wrong way. So these two attitudes are in our mindset, and we try to cultivate the awareness of having challenges be something that can help us grow. When we did this workshop in person, we had this group activity where we would have 3 or 4 amateurs get together and discuss phrases, whether they were fixed mindset growth mindset, or not sure. And so we're going to do a similar online version of that right now. I'm going to show you a phrase, and then we're going to put up a poll, and you're going to vote in the poll if the phrase is growth mindset, fixed mindset, or not sure. I also want to mention that Alice Few put in the chat a wonderful video called Private Universe about how people make ideas and hypotheses and how they think about things. It's a really interesting video. So here's a phrase that we discussed already. What do you think "you are so smart" is? I'm going to put up the poll, and you should see it. You might need to move the poll window over a little bit so that you can see the phrase. But do you think this phrase, "you are so smart," is growth mindset, fixed mindset, or not sure? So you should be able to click in the poll and then submit. And it won't tell me who said what, but it will give me the results about what you guys think. Okay, we have about 88% fixed mindset and 13% growth. So maybe one or two folks thought that it was a growth mindset, and a couple of people say fixed mindset. And a lot of the times, that's because people think growth mindset is a good thing, and telling someone they're smart is a good thing. And while it is, it also can be kind of challenging. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Right? Let's try a different one. Your practice is really paying off. So you're going to see the poll window pop up, and just think about that phrase. Check whether you think it's growth mindset, fixed mindset, or not sure. Ah, 100% growth mindset. Did everybody get a chance to do that? To weigh in on the polls? Okay. Well, the folks that have their video up seem to have gotten the results. So cool. But yes, growth mindset means that you're practicing and you're learning and growing, right? So that is definitely, everyone thought that was growth mindset. We're going to just do, here's one that's a little bit trickier. Adjusting the telescope is hard. Let me find that for you. I can put no. Okay, we got fixed mindset and not sure, right? Yeah, this is a little more challenging because, yes, adjusting the telescope is hard. It's something you need to learn. But if you're not following it up with something like, this is something that takes practice. And then that makes it more of a growth mindset thing. But when you say, let me find that for you, it is a fixed mindset, meaning that you're not a person who can get this. So let me help you find that. So it can change depending on the way that you phrase it, and also the attitude that you have. 89, it's 89 plus 11. Can you see the results, Stacy? Yeah, yes, it says 12. Well, on mine it says 11. Who knows? The magical ways of Zoom. The 1% is John's cat. So how could you change this phrase to make it a little more growth mindset? If someone is adjusting the telescope and you want to interact with them, what could you say? Alice says, what I struggle with my volunteers. Struggle is okay. Great.
What I do, Teresa, is I just work with them and ask more questions, you know, like, well, what do you see in the viewfinder? I'll have them go to the finder scope, which is a little bit easier to use. So instead of just cutting them off, I'll work more with them, trying to help them be able to use it.
Great. Linda also puts in the chat, give it a try. It's okay if you can't find it. And Stacy says, adjusting the telescope can be hard when you first start with it. Try this. So these are perfect ways to encourage not only the hands-on mechanisms, but also that idea that it's okay to fail and okay to struggle and okay to have challenges. That's so much part of doing science. Okay, let's try one more. It can be challenging to learn the sky, so after tonight, you'll be even better at it. Then here comes the poll. Okay, let's see when the poll comes back. Growth mindset 100%. So you guys are getting it, yeah? It's kind of an interesting idea that the language that we use when we work with girls or other folks at the telescope can really make a big difference in how they see themselves in terms of being a science person. Jennifer asks, questions that inquire about the specific difficulty. What can we do differently? Do you want to just talk about that a little more, Jen? You have to undo your muting on the phone there. Jennifer, there.
Sorry about that. I had somebody walk by.
So what did you mean when you were asking about the specific difficulty?
So I imagine that when they're looking through the telescope, they'll be like, oh, I can't see it, or oh, it's off, you know, like it's over here or something, or it was just there a minute ago, like something that inquires as to, well, what is your specific problem? And then saying, well, what should we do to fix it? And then kind of inviting them to problem solve.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, how could we get that back in the thing? What do you think we should do to find it? Like, what could we do differently? Kind of inviting them to be problem solvers. Right.
And problem solving, again, is a lot of the STEM fields, and astronomy in particular. The amazing way they came up with that picture of the black hole, for instance. That's an amazing problem solving ability of, like, how do we take a picture of something we can't see? So yeah, the problem solving is an important science skill. So thank you for participating in the poll with me. How about this one? You really are a science person. Last poll. Everyone saw that was fixed mindset. Yep. Even though it's a nice compliment, you might also be a literature person. You might also be a numbers person. You have all different facets of you that are not encompassed in one interaction. Cool. Here's a couple more pieces to doing more inclusiveness. I just want to point out that there's a process but not praise. And we were talking a few minutes ago about the "you're so smart" idea. So think about when you're at the telescope and there's like a long line of girls behind you. right? And so there's one girl at the telescope, and maybe you're having a really good connection with her, right? And she says something that is really profound, and you say, "Oh, you're so smart," and it might be a real nice moment between the two of you. But it does lead to this idea that you always have to be smart. And so any other interaction, like that girl might have been going to ask you a question, but now she doesn't want to seem dumb. So she might not ask that question. Also, all the other girls in the line, they wonder, "Ooh, am I going to get that plum too? That nice feeling of a compliment." And also, it doesn't say what you want it to say. It doesn't say, "Wow, that's a really insightful comment," or "I really like the way you focus that telescope." So we have to try to call out the specific skills. Right? Alice in the chat says, "How about, I like that you thought about that." Great. That's a way that you can connect with the girl and also not trap her into always having to have the right answer. Also, you don't know why somebody knows something. They might have just done a report about Saturn for school, and so they know a lot about Saturn's moons, and they have had that exposure, but they don't have that passion. Whereas someone has the passion and maybe has been studying the planets since they were 4 or 5 years old and knows a lot about them and can't remember exactly how many moons there are, but is really excited about it. And so it's wonderful to be able to just talk to them about what's going on. Vivian has a great point. I'm just going through and not saying that you guys are doing great, giving me great suggestions. And it's really showing how much you have thought about your outreach and really kind of taking the time to interact and to share your expertise and joy of sharing astronomy. So Alice says, "What else do you know?" It's great having somebody who knows so much about Girl Scouts on the call. And we also have Jessica Hendricks, who's our local Northern California council person. So say something specific, like, "I like the way that you focus the telescope," or "It's interesting that you bring it up." Or say something that talks about the research they're doing and see where that came from. And here's a little phrase. Again, I know we're going to mess these up, and I mess them up all the time. But if you find yourself saying something like, "It's really hard, let me help you with that," or something that you say, "Oops, I'm not supposed to say that," you can add this word "yet." And for example, I'm having a tough time in the kitchen. I'm not very good at cooking, but I know if I keep applying myself, I'm not good at cooking yet, but I still could learn it. If I cared about it as much as I cared about astronomy, I probably would be there already. So, yes, Jessica says, "Such a lifesaver, that word "yet." I use "yet" all the time now, Ken says. Wonderful. Thanks, you guys, for sharing. I want to invite you also, if you're out in the world just talking to people in your office or in your club or out at the store, just see how many times you hear people using those, "You're a math person," or "You're not good with this," or and just see if you can turn it around in your head a little bit, like we were starting to do. Even if you feel particularly excited about it, you can share what you learned about growth mindset and say, "That's not a real kind way to talk to yourself. Maybe you can think about how you can grow." So what does all this have to do with astronomy? We're learning about the stars. Last week we talked a lot about how the girls have this idea that science isn't for girls, or that it's a boy thing, right? When you have this idea, if a boy has a predetermined scientific ability, that's not according to the research, right? So another thing is that science is about trial and error. Even Stephen Hawking said, "If you make a mistake, tell someone that might be a good thing, because without imperfection, neither you or I would exist." Right? And so I bet if I asked you who discovered the moon, I mean the craters on the moon, and who was the first person to turn a telescope to the sky, that scientist would come to mind very easily. But part of the reason that Galileo is so famous is because he published his results and he shared them with his community. And so what he did was publish in Italian. Uh, he was very egalitarian in that way, and that he didn't, a lot of the scientific publishing was in Latin, only in a language that the priests and monks understood. And by publishing in Italian, he really opened up the door for the everyday person to start interacting with these ideas. And so we have those same opportunities to be inclusive, not only for Girl Scouts and girls, but for anybody who's felt excluded from science. One other thing I want to say, science is trial and error. It's about making mistakes. It's about trying again. It's about failing and getting up. It's about rejecting false hypotheses. It's about, even though you loved Pluto as a planet, now it's not a planet anymore, right? Taking advantage of those times to figure out, well, what is a planet? How does that work? And those kind of digging in the dirt and trying to figure out what makes sense is something that growth mindset, using tools, using language that's inviting, can really help bring people into the science world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about questioning techniques, but I really want you guys to also jump in if you have questions that you use a lot. So we definitely just want to move away from being that sage on the stage who knows everything to kind of more in a conversational, welcoming way of being at the telescope. Right? It doesn't mean that you don't have expertise, because you do. It just means that you're gonna welcome other folks to participate. So here's a question to ask that I would love if you could ask the next time you're out, even at Astronomy Day, which is right around the corner for a lot of us, right? Have you looked through a telescope before? Right? Obviously, a daisy is going to have a different idea than a solar physicist about the sun. But a lot of times people just assume because you're in a female body, you might have not as much knowledge as a male person does. So there's a whole story behind this on a blog post, but maybe I'll share that with you guys another time. Ken says, tell me what you were seeing. Yes. When you ask about the experience level, you're giving the chance for a girl who really knows a lot about astronomy to share that knowledge and excitement that she has. And when you're talking to a beginner and you learn that, you can really take the time to tell a story about from when you were a beginner. What was the things that was exciting to you when you first started looking at the stars? So this one question can make a really big difference. Also, when you ask a question, you see me do it here a lot, just take a moment to pause, right? Because you need to hear the question, think about the question, realize you're being asked a question, then think about your answer. And it takes a little time to do all of those processes, right? So take a moment while you're doing that. And then something you can also do is try to make a connection with the girl. How long have you been a Girl Scout? Have you seen the new space movie? Whether that's First Man or the Apollo 11 documentary that just came out, or there's always a new space movie. What questions do you guys use for when you're trying to engage and connect with a girl? Asking the right questions can be more important than the answer. I have paper and crayons. Can you tell me or draw for me? What is your favorite object? These are wonderful suggestions. I actually have this right here. What objects do you know about in the night sky, right? It's a wonderful question that can help get them engaged with what we're doing. What is something you love about space? What do you already know about blank? Yeah. If you're looking at the Andromeda Galaxy, it's great to say, what do you know about galaxies? John, do you want to say anything more about that one? Just if you want to, if you have a time that you used it. I don't want to put you on the spot. But so in addition to connecting with the girl, you can also have engagement questions that are all about what you're doing. So just say, oh, do you have your star chart if it's an older girl, junior and above, right? Middle school, high school, perfect time to ask them about star charts and using tools. Right? Also, if there's a lot of different objects in the sky and you can ask them, you can say, want to take a look at Saturn? When you look at the sky, what do you see? Do they have different colors? Do the stars have different colors? Do you know why? You must have a real dark sky if you can see the colors in San Francisco. It's a little bit trickier to see the colors of the stars, unless it's like in Orion.
Well, if you look at the double star, like, and you've got, you know, a pair of stars and they're two different colors, you can.
Like Albireo.
Yeah, or when you're looking at the Ring Nebula, some people see color. What color do they see?
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing, everyone, your questions that you ask at the telescope. A lot of times also we get asked questions, unless it's like a simple yes or no or a numerical question where you just have a set answer like that there's 8 planets in the solar system or something like that. Try to turn it back to the girl to help her answer her own question. And even if they make a guess or make a mistake, that's part of doing science, right? So we say, great that you made a mistake. That's wonderful. You're in the right ballpark. And there's lots of ways that you can respond to something that comes up without saying you're wrong. I know sometimes there are things that really push our buttons that make us want to say, oh, that's wrong. But really we want to have sort of very gentle corrections. So if you cannot jump to that wrong, try to find what's right in what they're saying. Or also try to see it from the girl's point of view. I think Ken was talking about this earlier, but sometimes when you look in the telescope and the girl comes out from looking at the eyepiece and you see her face is very blank. And you say, oh, what did you see? Did you see it? And she goes, you could tell, no, she didn't see a thing. So older girls might say, all I see is black, right? So you might know that they're looking at the back of the telescope, or you might think that, oh, the Earth is turning and moved my object out of view. So just say, hey, can we troubleshoot this? Let me take a look. If everything seems fine, you could say, I'm able to see the stars still, or the object we're looking at, but if I look in different directions, I can only see black too. So I try to move my head around. Would you like to try to move your eye around and see if you can find a spot? That way you're not saying, oh, you're looking at the wrong place. Right? Alice says, everyone has a different way to place their eye. Try this, even better. And so that's a common thing that comes up. And so how can we get, not put it on a wrong spot, but that's to say that it's a little different all the time. Ken says
the thing I mentioned earlier too, which I just recently started using, is having them look, again, like you said, they're looking in the eyepiece, you kind of know they don't see it. Have them look in the finder scope. So number one, they don't feel like, they haven't seen anything. That gives them a little more confidence because it's easier to see things in the finder scope. And then kind of go back to the eyepiece. And actually that has worked really well for me.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I mean, you basically want to confirm that they had a real experience and that it's okay. They didn't do anything wrong, and it's just time to try again. Alice says, I have a secondary eyepiece, and I have them look at my finger across from the eyepiece. So it's kind of like you're using your finger to have them look. I want you guys, if you have good tricks for this, put them in the forum. I'm going to post a prompt to try to remind everybody about their cool outreach activities or questions that they like to ask, because there's so much wonderful dialogue going on in the chat. I'm really excited that you're sharing your stories, and I'd like to do that some more. So. Here's another way that I want to interact with you guys about misconceptions. So that's one way to gently correct a situation that we encounter a lot of the times. Sometimes, though, the misconceptions that we get really push our buttons. For me, it would be number 10 on this misconception list. It drives me crazy when people say astrology is astronomy. And I try to take a deep breath and say, well, astrology was something for a long time that people thought was studied the sky, looking at that. But now we know that the planets aren't gods, and we still love looking at those constellations. Would you like me to show you the constellation that that your sun sign is in, if it's up in the sky that night? So try to find the right and the gentle. So what I'd like you to try to do now is just to put in the chat one of the numbers that really pushes your buttons, and we'll try as a team to figure out a gentle correction that we can do for that. And maybe we'll just only be able to have time for a couple of them, but we could try to get a few in. We have a few sevens, a 1. Oh, yes, Alice says, early astrologers did us a great favor by keeping such good records. And he says, I have them look out through the other eye because sometimes one eye focuses differently. We have a 3, a 1, a 3, and an 8, and a 10. Okay, so let's start with 7, because that seems to me the North Star is the brightest star in the sky. Where did you hear that? So what do you think you would say? Do you want? I don't want to take up all the talking, but I would love it if you felt you had a good answer for number 7. Then let's talk about that one. So, okay, not everybody's jumping in. So I'll do this one to give you an example, and then you can jump in on some of the other ones that you feel more comfortable with. But so number 7 is about the North Star, and a lot of people are really excited about it and say it's the brightest star in the sky. But I say the North Star is a really well-known star, and I'm glad you're so excited about it. It turns out that actually 7 stars in the Big Dipper are actually brighter than the North Star. And you can see the North Star by using those pointer stars in the Big Dipper, and then I'll show them the Big Dipper and how to find the North Star. Or I can also sometimes say the North Star isn't the brightest star, but it's one of the most important because it's always over our North Pole and the whole sky seems to turn around it. If I'm in the planetarium, I can do some star trails and show them how the North Star sort of seems to stay in the same place. The North Star is special, but for a different reason. Yes, the North Star is important because it doesn't appear to move, not because of its brightness. I usually start with telling them, Vivian says, that's a common misconception, so they don't feel bad. Okay, so number one was a doozy, I see. And so let's talk about number one. This actually also is one of my ones that really bugs me. So I could do it for either number one or number 10. But someone actually already said, Alice said it, right? What about the Southern Hemisphere, right? Most people know that when it's summer in the Northern Hemisphere, that it's winter in the Southern Hemisphere, right? So how can that be that it's summer because the sun, that we're closer to the sun, right? If we were closer, actually physically closer with the Earth to the sun, then we could talk, then the whole planet would be warmer. So yes, that's a good way to have people think about it and have an aha moment. But what can we say that's right about that?
I wonder if you can ask, you think that because the sun is hot and so it's hot when we're closer? So starting with maybe even asking them where they might have some accuracy in that statement, even if that's not the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah, that, something similar that I usually say is something like, yeah, on Earth, when we get closer to things, we feel warmer. Like if we're near a campfire, that's what we're accustomed to. And that's a good thing to think about when you're thinking about things like that. But because that's now you can go into the Northern and Southern Hemisphere and say, it's not quite the same thing when we're talking about the seasons. Anyone else have anything they want to share for that misconception? Thank you, Jessica. Couldn't you say that they're close? For instance, it's the tilt of the Earth. So part of the Earth is closer or farther to the sun. Yes, yes, you could say that. It is about the tilt. It's kind of tricky, right? Because it's more about the length of the rays and the direct sunlight versus the indirect sunlight. So, but yeah, you're right. The tilt is part of it, right? The tilt is the reason why they have the direct or indirect rays, and that part is closer to the sun. But it's a little tricky, yeah. So I could say it's about the orientation of the Earth. Say more about that, Jessica. I don't know.
I was just wondering, when you're talking about tilt, is there another word that tilt works well? But I was just curious. It's not changing its distance, but it's changing its. What's that word that goes in there? Is changing its tilt?
The tilt's the same. Yeah, okay. Yeah. The tilt is about that that angle that it's at all the time with the tilt with the exception of precession, which happens every 5,000-6,000 years, so it really doesn't affect us much. But it's really about that the rays get spread out more as you're in the winter time, as you're have less direct sunlight.
So it's about how the sun's rays reach the Earth?
Right, and so that's how the tilt relates to it. It's like the part that's tilted towards the sun has more direct rays, and then the part that's tilted away has less direct rays. Vivian says, show a model, and that often helps. Yes, very good idea. And models are great and wonderful, and I have to say, as other hat for the Night Sky Network, we have great models for you. We have great toolkits. use them, love them, bring them around with you. If you need something like that, that's a good model for the Earth. Let us know, and we're happy to share that with you. Bring out your light bulb. And another thing you can do is make a mental model. I say that if you took a spoonful of peanut butter and stuck it on a piece of bread, that might make a good sandwich. But if that piece of bread was the size of the whole state and you still had the same amount of peanut butter, it wouldn't go very far, right? So when there's a little bit of light spread over a wide distance, it doesn't make it very warm. But yeah, thank you, Jennifer. She says we have the best tools. Any other, let's go back to, I just don't want to leave you guys hanging. So we had 3, was from a few people. Somebody else said 10. Yeah. 3 and 8. Okay, so let's do 3 first because we got a few 3s. I'm gonna turn this over to you guys. All right, the moon has a dark side, that's an internal darkness. What are you gonna say when you hear a girl say this? What's gonna be your gentle response? Remember, you can unmute yourself by just reaching down in the left corner and turning that microphone off or on. Pink Floyd fan, huh? Often. The moon on a stick model is great for separating out the near side and the dark side. Yeah. This is probably a question that an older girl would ask. Right? It wouldn't be something that a younger girl would notice or know about. But somebody who's in 4th, 5th, 6th high school, adults ask all the time, yes. Where do you think the light might go when it's a quarter or new moon? Oh, that's a really good question, Stacy. I think that would start people wondering. Yeah, I like that. And this is a time when models are really great too. Any model for the Earth and the Sun has 2 ratios you have to remember. The moon is a quarter of the size of the Earth. So if you have something that is, say, this big for the Earth, you want to have something about this big for the moon, right? The other ratio is that whatever you pick for the Earth, it's 30 diameters away is how far the moon is. So if you remember that it's 30 Earth diameters and the distance is, the ratio of the diameters is 1 Earth ratio to a 4, and you can make any model. For example, you could take a basketball and a tennis ball. You could take a little pony bee. John's sharing. I'm gonna stop my share for just a minute so you can, don't put that back. Let's see if I can. Did everyone see John's model there?
Can you hear me okay?
Do it again.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. See if I can pin his.
Please.
Does that work? Can you all see it when I pin it?
Try it now.
Nope, you might have to go up to the top and click on his, and then there's a pin this video. Nice, John.
Does everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
And you could also talk about, you don't need to tell them that it's 30 Earth diameters away, but you could ask them, where do you think the moon could be?
So you have a near and a far side on that popsicle stick. Is that the key there? That was pretty cool.
Oh, do you have something on the popsicle stick? Oh, far, near.
Far out. Very nice.
Awesome. That's a good trick. Play-Doh and yarn. We think it's dark, but because we never see it, but it actually does receive sunlight. Nice simple statement that doesn't say anything about being wrong, and a lot about why we think it's dark. Yep. And of course, Vivian's idea about that it's a common misconception. So that's something that
could you hold that up one more time, because a couple of people didn't see it, and I want to take a screenshot, and then I'll post it for everybody. Thanks for sharing. Let's see.
Great. And again, a lot of you guys have wonderful expertise that we can share together. So if there's something that you use a lot, it's great to post that in the forum so we can all take advantage of your expertise.
Did you want those?
Yeah, if you can hold up the popsicle stick closer to the screen so you can see it. Can you guys see this now? How he's got a far side of the popsicle stick. Nice. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick screenshot. I'll post it. All right, hold it so we can see the far for us. Oh, one more time with feeling, and then I'll stop. Thanks. Cool. Thanks, John.
Yes,
You're
thanks,
welcome.
everyone. Really wonderful ideas that everyone had. The last one that we had was about 8, right? The stars are fixed and eternal, they never die. That's a really interesting idea. And they look like they're fixed from Earth. They might be the same your whole life. But stars actually run out of fuel sometimes, and then they might die and make a beautiful explosion. Would you like to see one? So that's something that I would say, always just focusing on the part that's right. And thank you, John, for sharing that wonderful tool. Speaking of tools, I want to say that these ideas that we're sharing tonight, they're not just for girls, they're for boys, not just for kids, but adults. Anyone who is interested in learning astronomy might have also had a time that they felt unwelcome. And so just being more accessible will help everybody explore astronomy. So here's one of the last topics I want to go into tonight, about touching the scope. Don't touch the scope. That whole idea, right? It's very tricky when you want girls to have hands-on experience, and we know that that creates a fantastic learning experience. It's the quickest way to learn. So what we can do if we don't want them to touch the scope that we've just spent a long time getting something small in focus, and it's really frustrating when they do that, is to bring an extra telescope. Penny was saying that that in her family they have 6 telescopes, 7, you said? Not quite sure.
Too many, and they keep
Right.
multiplying.
Yeah. So if you have an extra, I know a lot of amateurs do, it's okay to bring one that the girls can touch and share. Dobsonians can make great telescopes for beginners to find objects. One wonderful story we had with the Girl Scouts of Northern California was that somebody accidentally fell into the Dobsonian. And instead of being upset, this astronomer, she turned to the girl and said, "Well, now you're going to have to help me find the moon again." And she showed the girl how to sort of look along the tube and look towards the sky and see when it's next to, and get the moon in the scope. And this girl was a brownie, so she was 8, 9. maybe younger, and she found the moon and she was so excited. She was jumping up and down. She said, I found the moon, I found the moon. And to every girl in her troop or little group that she was with, she told them, I found the moon. Do you want to show me? You want to see me to show you the moon? I found it. And she was so excited about that. So if you have an extra telescope that the girls can use, it can be an amazing experience for you and for them. Binoculars also, the younger girls, as we mentioned, have a hard time holding some of the heavier ones, so you can use toy ones. But if you have heavier ones that are good, they're good for the older girls. You can also give them a list of objects they can choose from, like, oh, these are what's in the sky tonight. Maybe you want to go over here and see the Orion Nebula, or look here and see Mars. I would love to know some thoughts from you guys about how you'd like to share that hands-on, eyes-on inclusive experience of having the girls not necessarily touch your telescope, but still have a hands-on experience. And I see there's also a few marks in the chat we already have. We have scopes that are hosted specifically for helping people handle telescopes. You want to talk about that, Penny?
Well, when we have the observing, we have small ball telescopes that sit down on a lower bench. And so we have one astronomer that's there that people are encouraged to look and find and see and handle, so that they have that hands-on experience specifically. And there's somebody there to help guide them to find something. But they're specifically set out there in our public event for people to learn and find things in the telescope.
Great. Perfect example, right? And Stacy says she has a job out. Oh, you guys are in the same club, so that would make sense, right? Then the kids can interact with it, and if they move it accidentally, it's no big deal. John says, I like to keep a step stool handy so kids and adults have something they can grab instead of the telescope. I actually have that tip in the next slide, so thank you for getting that going. Yes. It's nice to have a kind helper. I learned about binoculars from the ASP store. Thank you, Jessica. Yes, it's nice to help. Adorable enough for small kids and for the whole summer camp. Each one teach one, pass on the understanding. Thanks, Viv. These are great tips for being inclusive. I want to invite you again, if you have other hands-on activities you want to do with the girls, like the pocket solar system. I know you all have favorite outreach tools, so I would love it if you want to post that stuff in. I know we could probably spend the next 2 hours talking about our favorite outreach activities. So share it in the forum, please, because I would love to have that expertise shared. Len says that his club has a small daub, and I use to train the kids. Then when they have finished finding the object, I give them a license. Cool. Do you have an example of the license, Len? Is it like a driver's license? I'll unmute you.
We do that. We give them a badge for the night with a flasher on it, and then because all of our volunteers have little flashers on their badges, and then the kids can basically drive that scope.
Great. Very cool. That is something I had not thought of. That's really nice. Gives them an opportunity to share their excitement as well. And this was what we were talking about. I think John mentioned it, right? That here's a line of Girl Scouts and event. These pictures are all from Jessica Henricks. She did an event at Levi Stadium, which is a sports stadium that they have concerts and huge amounts of light, but they still had good images of the moon and good planets to view. And so they had a whole range. But this person used a telescope stool, which is great for kids that are smaller to step up on. But as you can see, the girl has a drink in one hand, and then where's the other one? It's probably on the telescope that she's using to balance herself. Some girls have incredibly good balance. I do not. And so something that you can use is just a different type of stool. So if you have this stool here where she can see her hands are actually on the step stool. And sometimes just having a different piece of equipment can really make a welcoming environment. So that girl, she's a small daisy, but you can see that she's secure. She's not going to grab the telescope to steady herself. And she's looking through the eyepiece and they look like they're having a great time. So that's a really helpful tip. Another thing you can do, here's Ken. We have the girls help you set up the telescope before you have it set to an object. And with the younger girls especially, like when it's time for they'll be out when it's daytime, and because they have early bedtimes, star events will start earlier. And so they would love to help you set up the telescope or look inside the telescope. Finding out that there is a mirror at the end can be really exciting, because mirrors are something that are common everyday objects that they probably have in their house. And so having that experience of a common everyday object as a scientific tool can be really recharging those science batteries. General outreach tip: when you have the younger kids, it's great to get down to their level. The older girls just find that you'll just be eye to eye with them, but the younger kids, sometimes you're talking about the universe and they're looking at your knees. So getting down to them can be really helpful. And if you're interested in learning some general outreach tips like this, the Night Sky Network has a video series about getting started with outreach that can just be filled with tips. So we're wrapping up tonight. I just want to remind you that this opportunity to share the sky is a really great one. And with these badges, I hope that you're going to have lots of girls coming to your events. It might be the first time they look through the telescope ever. So how you do it is important, right? As we're wrapping up, I want you to think about, we've talked about a lot of new tips and tools. We talked about growth mindset, ideas, and language, and we talked about questioning and asking questions, answering questions, gentle corrections. That's just tonight. So I'm hoping that one change you could make for the Astronomy Club for Astronomy Day, would be something, or your next outreach opportunity, something that you can do that's specific, that can help support girls' confidence and interest. So here's the list of topics that we've gone over in our 2 sessions. If you can take one idea that you think you can specifically add, say, I'm going to add more stories about female astronomers, or I'm going to use that word yet whenever I get stuck. So I'm getting some messages here in the chat. Ken says he wants to ask the girls what kind of object they'd like to see. Alice says, I want to keep working on the yet. I will be more careful not to say, you're so smart. Right? It's okay to say, that's a smart observation, or that's interesting. No. Okay. Wonderful. Growth mindset, Gina says. Hi, Gina. Yes, great tool to help you have some excitement for girls. Deciding on my go-to telescope question from the great examples here. Maybe even for each Girl Scout level. Oh, that's a wonderful idea, because there are so many different levels of age appropriateness. Yeah. Addressing misconceptions. Thanks, Len. Yeah, that can be a really great way to connect with the girls. I need a step stool for my telescope. I've put it off for too long. Yes, yes, we actually have one of those stools at ASP. One that's with the handle and one that's without. The magic of yet, John says, incorporating stories into my programming. Jennifer, you are a great storyteller. I actually got to go up and see the eclipse nearby Jennifer's Park, and got to do a star party with her, and it was a great experience hearing some of her stories. So I'm not going to put more folks on the spot right now, but if you do have some specific, and use glow in the dark tape on your step stool, it really helps. Yes. Some folks used red Christmas lights, or those strings of lights. Other folks sometimes use glow stick, those glow bracelets. You can put them around the legs of your telescope. Cool. Thank you. So with your one change, other folks will see you using those tools, and hopefully it will spread out into our culture and make it a more friendly and welcoming place for women and girls. So thank you so much for coming tonight. I have a question for you, which is that I really want to know, would you think your club would be interested in either having a session similar to this or some tools that they could have? I shared with you that growth mindset activity. I'm going to post that on the forum, but you can share that activity with your club if you're interested. And so would there be something that you would like to share with your club? Whether it's just saying, hey, I went to this workshop, would you like to go? Or Penny, you have Stacy with you, and I know John, you have Linda with you, and there's a few partners here so that you can kind of help each other. Sorry, I was just saw on the chats Alice putting something else, but I just want to say that if you would like to do that, NSN always gives more resources for amateurs. So if there are resources that you think would be helpful for you, like PowerPoint slides or stickers or models or those kind of things, let us know, because we would like to make those resources available for you. And I want to share one thing quickly that is already up. This is our Astro All site. I think I mentioned it in our earlier talk, but this outreach resource is all about the Girl Scout space science badges and reaching out to Girl Scouts. And so there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we didn't have time to go into in this live session, but you can check it out here. You can also register for different online workshops, because you guys are the test session. So your feedback will make it even better for other amateurs that can take the class. Lots of links to explore your own biases, or to find out more women astronomers. So the chat is just lighting up here. Alice says, they may not think they do, but they really do need to reflect upon growth mindset. Yes, growth mindset phrases and learning. I've actually done a modified version of this already after our in-person workshop. Wow, Ken, that's awesome. Can you talk about that for a minute and let us know, were there any resources you needed, or any things that worked well?
It was at the beginning of each of our astronomy club meetings, we have a what's up talk, and it's usually 25 minutes or so. So it was after we had the session over at Twin Canyons. And I think you had given us handouts that maybe I had put in a PowerPoint presentation. So I was able to utilize, a lot of especially the specific, growth versus fixed mindset information. So I just kind of gleaned some of the important aspects, and then put some photographs in the PowerPoint presentation. So it actually was received very well. This was probably a little over a year ago.
Well, that's wonderful. Would you feel okay about sharing those PowerPoint with our group here?
Yeah, let me take a look and see. I'm not sure what form. I know one of the problems I had was we had changed meeting rooms, and I had done the PowerPoint, of course, on an MS-DOS machine, and it got put on an Apple machine, and a lot of the photos didn't work. But yeah, let me look and see what I have, and I'll post it on the forum.
Yeah, and I can help if you want to just email it to me. Also, I can help make it into a Google Doc or something that is more accessible for different computers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'll work.
Great, thank you. I'm so glad you did that. If you would like, we're actually trying to develop a few activities that are about this topics that you could sort of do at the start of the meeting, because a lot of clubs follow a similar format, that they have a little bit of a speaking time before they go out and observe, or that they have at their general meetings. They're not their observing sessions, but in their other meetings during the month. So if you're interested in that, let us know, because if you want to do those activities at a general meeting, we can use you for testers for that as well. Jennifer says we will share that bit.ly link on the forum. It's, yep, that's Stacy. And Jennifer says she's doing a training session working with youth. She'd like to incorporate this. Fine. These slides are going to be on the forum, and you're welcome to share them. I am going to have to put some credits on some of the images, so just let me know before you share them, because I'll be putting up some more of the image credits. Okay. There are so many things that came out. I don't know if I got to everybody's point. You all think you'll be the only ones from your club who are interested. We're wondering how to get this out to wider audiences. Yes. You know, if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll keep getting what we always get, right? So if we can change some culture within our clubs, that's going to really be more welcoming for everybody. And we want you to have the support to make the changes that you want to make. Yeah. We'd like to have more information on the badge or license to drive the scopes. Yes, that would be lovely.
I wonder if anyone's tried anything like this, or any other kinds of training for your telescope operators or for club members. I'm just curious of what other things that you've tried that have worked, and how we could maybe get this out to a wider audience in an easy, kind of fun, engaging way that makes people feel like they're learning something new and important.
I can chime in on that one. I do, this is Alice up in Tacoma, and we do periodic trainings for the volunteers, usually around specific topics, and a lot of times it's around the Night Sky Network, but you know, the eclipse was a big one. And what we find that really works is to have them sign up, to tell them that the club will pay for it, even though there may or may not be charges, and then give them kind of special ambassador badges for a particular topic. But then having them all together, and we include the volunteer astronomers from the adult club with the student astronomers from the student club and our Girl Scout affiliates together in the same workshop. And then always is just amazing what happens with that kind of combination, because oftentimes you'll have the kids kind of preaching to the adults, no, 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 this would work better. And it's really, really fun to watch that dynamic.
That sounds very cool. I'd love to see that. That's such a great pairing. Jessica says, we all have so much to learn from each other. Agreed. And Penny says, our club has a monthly newsletter that goes out to meeting members, so an article about public interaction could be beneficial. Yes, we do have a write-up that's already done, that's in the that page. Unfortunately, it goes to an article that you have to kind of scroll to, like it starts out with this magazine, and then you have to go to page 52. So that's one of the problems with our with this particular online magazine. We also have one in our ASP newsletter, so we can give you access to that as well.
Okay, that would be great, because then we could take that and drop that in, or portions of it, edit it, and just do sections of it that then would get out to all of the people who are doing outreach.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's really enlightening. And I'm going to listen to this part and write down notes. But I also would love for you guys to keep putting stuff on the forum so that we can keep sort of a community together. One last couple of things to sort of wrap up this live session. We're going to have a short evaluation of tonight's session, sort of like we did last week. This time it's going to have 5 questions, but they're also short. So you should be able to do it in less than 2 minutes. So if you want to do it right after this session, Vivian's going to put the link to the that quiz in the chat. We're going to also have, because you guys are our pilot testers, and we thank you and we so appreciate you doing that, we're going to just have a more detailed evaluation where we can ask you about the whole course, the forum sessions and the live sessions, and also more about how we can support you if you want to share it with your club. I know that not everybody is as outgoing, so if that's not something you're interested in, if there's other people you might want to tap on the shoulder and say, hey, this person would like to do that. Or also information about other community of practice. So I just want to say that a community of practice is really great for people who are working together to sort of find the best practices or best ways to do things. So as you guys are going out again into your astronomy outreach events, you're going to find, hey, I did this and it was great, or oh, I tried this and I really failed and I would love to get some feedback on that, or I'm really trying to grow in this area and I don't know how this got away from me, or I forgot to add yet, or all of those things that we talked about. There's so many different topics, and as we go out and doing astronomy, it's great to have a community of practice. So if anyone has ideas about Facebook versus keeping the forum open for those kind of things, or having different areas where you can contribute and share, let me know about that. Vivian, was there any other things we wanted to talk about?
No, I'm just so excited. We're having a lot of fun putting together these little thank you packages. So thank you guys so much for helping us craft this and make it an online workshop. We've never done this before. So it's great to have your feedback, and we really appreciate all of your honest feedback. You can be as harsh as you want, because it will make us, it'll make this a better workshop in the end. So we so appreciate.
We have growth mindset here, so feedback and challenges is good. And also, it's completely anonymous, so we won't be like, oh, that John Heasley. No, we'll just be like, oh, this is really interesting feedback that we got. And so there's a space, if you want to get feedback again, you can put your name on that, but that's totally up to you if there's something that you want to give us feedback on that you want to hear back from us. So, but otherwise it's completely anonymous. And you're also welcome to email me or reply in the forum, or send me something directly if you're interested, and you don't need to put it in your anonymous survey. So, all right, I know it's getting late. I see some yawns and people getting ready for bed. I know it's different parts of the country. It's getting pretty late. So I so much appreciate and thank you for listening and participating and sharing your thoughts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And please take the survey, and I will post this up in the forum later on. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Night.
Good night. Take care. Aw, lots of folks said thank
Sweet.
you. Thank you.
Sweet friend, you did amazing.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. And thank you so much for your comments and feedback. I love that.
I am excited to be able to participate with video, with audio, and to be able to make this work. And there's nobody around. I can fully participate. It was glorious.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for sharing your wonderful ideas and participation.
My dear, you have so much on your plate. Making this as amazing as it is just really a testament to your character. So keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks to everybody for participating. And yeah.
All right. Have a good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night, everybody.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Aw.